It looks like your guy Darius Slayton is back in the building.
Yep, he's back on the practice field. Still, I guess, hasn't resolved his contract situation with the Giants. Of course, he was holding out, missed the first few OTAs, missed the voluntary workouts. Those were voluntary, so who really cares? But the OTAs, that was a little bit more eye opening when he didn't show up for the first few practices. But he has returned to the team. He is there. And I think this is important for him, important for the Giants to get one of their top receivers back. But for Darius Slayton, in these summer practices where the Giants are kind of revamping their offense in many ways, have added a lot of wide receiver talent. I do think it's important for him to be on the football field and remind everyone, like, hey, I was the best receiver on this roster last year. You're not replacing me that easily. You need to pay me. Like, I'm here. Let's talk about it. Let's negotiate. And let me show you guys why it is so important that you give me the money I deserve.
Absolutely. And also, he's kind of the vet in that room. The Giants are a young wide receiver core outside of Slayton. So, one, it's good that he's there just to, help install the offense and get up to speed with his teammates. And we know chemistry is such an important part of the, quarterback and wide receiver relationship. The offense has to be in sync. And this is, in OTAs and training camp, that's when all that really happens. So it is important that he's there. But on top of that, too, he's the vet in the room and has to be, the leader there. And if he's showing it, maybe you could spin it like kind of like what you just said, like, hey, I'm doing the right thing by the team. Now you do the right thing by me. And let's make this mutually beneficial here.
Yeah, and I imagine that they've had their conversations. I know over a month ago when we first discussed the Slayton's holdout, he said that his agent and the Giants were having conversations and that everything was positive so far. So I imagine they've continued, and maybe him being in the building is just their way of expediting the process, getting Joe Shane and Darius Slayton in the same room to have a conversation. I'm sure the agent is present as well. Maybe this is just the next step of the process towards finding that solution, whatever it might be. Again, I think Darius Slayton does deserve the pay raise. I think he's looking for that. He took a pay cut a couple of years ago to be with the team. I think he probably just wants the difference made up here on the contract, and we'll see how it goes. But again, him being here is important for the Giants to take a look at his talent, stack it up to the rest of the guys on the roster, and reemphasize to themselves, we need this player. Like, this is a player that we do need to pay and keep around. This isn't somebody that we want to trade during training camp or move on from or let him walk in free agency next year. Like, this is one of the most talented players on our roster. It's important that we realize that, and it's important that we do what we can to keep him happy and keep him in the starting lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Slayton is such a versatile piece in this offense, too. I feel, obviously, like, Neighbors is going to be the default number one, as he should be. He was taken high in the draft. He's the most talented guy in this room. But, Darius is a guy who could, do a lot of things in this offense still. And, being the vet now, at 27 years old, it's not like he's, old and washed at this point, but he just has kind of the most experience there. And that even in bad offenses, he's gotten his numbers. He's went, over 700 yards 4 times in his career. The last years, the touchdown numbers were kind of down at 2 and 4, but let's be honest, the Giants don't really throw for a ton of touchdowns. So I don't really think it's fair to hold that against him. And you would hope at least that in an improved offense, his production should go up because of it.
Yeah, that's what you would hope. And I'll even say to the point of the touchdowns being thrown in this offense, not many of them, of course. And we've made our opinions on Daniel Jones rather clear on this show and on others. But with Daniel Jones, one thing that is important to note, his favorite receiver is Darius Slayton. They have had great chemistry throughout each other's careers. They were in the same draft class. That rookie season, I think Slayton had a career high 8 touchdowns, all thrown by Daniel Jones, of course. And Jones really trusts him and likes to depend on him in crucial situations. And a lot of the best highlights of Daniel Jones' career have been passes to Darius Slayton. So it is important with Daniel Jones also returning to the practice field recently, trying to get back into game shape, coming off of that torn ACL, having his favorite target, the guy that he has the most chemistry with. That is very important, of course. Jones is going to be throwing the ball to Neighbors. He's got to get used to that. He's got to be building that chemistry with Neighbors. But having somebody returning who he has that top-tier chemistry with, I do think that is very important, not only for Slayton, not only for this Giants offense, but for Daniel Jones specifically, and whether or not he can play well this upcoming season. Darius Slayton probably factors into that equation quite largely.
Yeah, I would think so. And, if they don't really know what their tight end situation is going to be. That Darren Waller is still in limbo whether he's going to play or not. So, there's only so many reps to go around. We know Neighbors is going to be heavily featured, and they have some, other young pups in that receiving core, but Slayton's still going to get his production. Again, it's good that he has that strong relationship with Daniel Jones. They've both been here for what, 5-6 seasons now. It's they have that chemistry built in, but it's not something that you want to see one of your receivers and one of your leaders on the team not being in the building over a contract dispute. So him being back, I think, is a fantastic sign. And who knows, maybe he gets rewarded and something gets done in the next week or so. I think that would be ideal for both sides on this.
I do too. I think it would be excellent if this kind of contract negotiation got settled sooner rather than later. And, like we've said, if you compare Slayton, his stats, and just his talent to some of the other wide receivers in the NFL, he is severely underpaid, making $6 million per year. I think his salary this year is a little over $7 million. But you compare his stats to a guy like Gabe Davis, who just got over $13 million. Slayton's a better player in my mind, and Slayton deserves at least $10 million per season. And I'm sure that's probably what he's pushing for, to get just a little bit of a salary increase, to have more of a competitive wage relative to the other receivers in the NFL. And again, I think the Giants understand that. They know that they have this bargain deal on their hands, but they also know that they have some salary cap space likely coming in from the potential retirement of Darren Waller. If Waller retires before June 1st, or if he retires after June 1st, doesn't matter. Giants can designate the cap hit to be moved however they want. But if he does retire, they're in store for probably an influx of $11 million in salary cap space with the post June 1st designation. So with that being the case, there's obviously room to increase Darius Slayton's salary. Right now, there isn't. I think the Giants have under $2 million in salary cap space. So there's really nothing that they can do for Slayton. But once Waller makes his retirement, that we all think is going to happen official, they're going to get a lot more salary cap space. They can give Slayton this pay raise, and maybe they can go out there and add a couple more depth pieces to the roster as well if they want to use some of that money up that they get from Waller. So that is a pretty important factor to consider here. With Slayton returning to OTAs, with Waller not returning to OTAs, I think that could be somewhat related.